Well, hello everyone. My name is Dan Armstrong. I'm the Corporate Communications Specialist at Covenant Eyes, and for this week's guest in our Facebook Live and YouTube Live segment, we have John Daugherty. He's the founder and president of Be Broken Ministries. And Jonathan, we want to get to your upcoming conference that'll be in April and sharing what that's going to be all about, how people can get involved in that. But before we get to that, talk a little bit about the ministry of Be Broken that has been around since 2003. We've had a few other folks from Be Broken, but I want to hear it from the founder himself. What does Be Broken do? How did it get started? And how do you help people?
Sure, I appreciate it, Dan. So we started the way a lot of these kinds of ministries start, and it just was born out of my own personal story of brokenness and addiction and then recovery. And which for me, that started actually in 1999 when kind of my life came crashing down because of a full-blown pornography and sexual addiction that nearly ruined my marriage. And then out of my recovery process and the restoration of my marriage, I started just doing a couple little things just to try to kind of help other men. Started a group at my church. I just meet with guys one-on-one if they needed help. Never thought of it as a vocation until about 2002 when I really started feeling God kind of tugging at my heart. And my initial response was, I absolutely just don't want to do this. I'm like, I don't want to become a face for sexual addiction and all of that means. But God has a way of, even though he doesn't infringe on our free will, he has a way of narrowing our options. So I lost my job. There were other things that happened that made it very clear this was the direction he wanted me to go. And eventually, I willingly surrendered to that calling. And in 2003, we founded Be Broken Ministries. And from that point on, it really started out primarily as a recovery-focused ministry, primarily for men and couples. Now, while our main audience to this day still remains being men and couples, because that's the vast majority of people that contact us are married individuals that are struggling with some kind of sexual brokenness issue. Over the years, our focus has shifted a little bit from being sort of an end user resource to now we are focusing more on developing and training leaders, especially at the local church level, so that we can expand our experience and expertise in the area of sexual integrity ministry. And so over the last couple of years, we've been making a little bit of a shift where we still provide some direct care resources for men and for wives. But so much of what we've been doing over the last really 10 to 12 years has been developing a network of national support groups, national counselors. We have hundreds all across the country, and so we refer people to these local resources. We've partnered with churches. We love being a partner with Covenant Eyes, other ministries that have resources that help people who are struggling with sexual brokenness issues. And then we also have our peer community initiative, which helps connect people with all kinds of books, blogs, podcasts, intensives, conferences that may or may not be done by us at all. We just want to connect people to the help that they need.
I think that's wise because it's very effective for a one-on-one type of situation where I reach out to someone who may be struggling, who then reaches out to someone else who's struggling. But at your level, I think, from the organizational level, I think it's wise and strategic to have more of a multiplying effect rather than just an addition type of thing, and get more effectiveness through that. And through that, I think it becomes safer for people to talk about these issues, to talk about struggles, to get the help that they need.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things, that's one of our biggest training pieces for those who seek to have some kind of a leadership capacity or want to help other people in this area of sexual brokenness, is that it's absolutely essential that you create safe enough environments for people to tell their story. Because that's really the beginning point of transformation, from kind of being hidden in the dark and struggling with maybe addictive patterns or even just past abuse issues. And you never move forward towards transformation without being able to kind of unpack your full story. So we want to come alongside churches, even counselors and even group leaders, and help them think through what environments are they creating that are conducive for people being safe enough, feeling safe enough to share their full story. And we like to call those grace-based environments. There's a lot of, even within the church, there's a lot of what we might call performance-based environments. So So even if you have a great recovery program, the environment might still be communicating to a person that your worth and your value is contingent upon how you perform this week, related to your struggle. We want to try to help people that we believe the biblical Christian approach is that because you are made in the image of God and that he counted you worth dying for on the cross, that your value is intrinsic, that it doesn't change based on your performance this week. And so therefore, from that grace-based foundation, now we can roll up our sleeves and deal with the messy process of recovery and transformation, knowing that there's nothing you can do this week, good or bad, that will change your value before God. And that's a whole different approach. And we feel like that's the best way to lead people forward in the recovery process or even just the transformation process.
You touched on something that I believe most human resources departments have figured out a long time ago and have a very difficult time teaching an entire organization, that culture happens. Every organization, every church, whether it's profit, nonprofit, whatever sector you're in, culture does happen, even if it's silent or if it is, if you're aggressive or assertive in one area. So, we parents, children pick up if we don't talk about certain things. That's the cue to say, well, we don't talk about these things, even though we would say, hey, if someone had a problem, came to us, we would deal with that appropriately. Without doing it or being silent on that, that is communicating. That speaks volumes to every organization. And unfortunately, I think most churches in America don't do a very good job at bringing this out. Oftentimes, from the pulpit, you'll hear pornography and a list of many other things that people may be struggling with, but never get past that level.
Mm-hmm. And I believe you're hitting the nail on the head. And this is what we found. So when I first started the ministry in 2003, you could count on one hand maybe the number of ministries that had any impact beyond just like a local area. Mm-hmm. So there were not very many ministries or even resources that went beyond, went to either a regional or a national level. Thankfully today there's more, but what we found early on is that when we tried to reach out to churches locally and then also nationally, I was so naive at the beginning of this vocation in this ministry. I was thinking, because I was passionate, I'd seen the change that God had made in my life, and I thought, this is what everybody needs. Everybody who's got any kind of sexual brokenness in their life, they need this great message. So I thought I could just waltz through the front door of every church in America and say, hi, my name's Jonathan. I used to be a sex addict, and now let me share with you what God's done, and this is the kind of stuff that you need here at this church. Mm-hmm. Well, in 2003, the vast majority of the messages that I would receive back was a message somewhat like, well, we don't really have that problem here in our church.
Wow.
Now, I will give the church overall credit in terms of where we've come in 15 years. Mm-hmm. You can go into most churches now and say something about the issue of pornography or sexual brokenness or abuse or trafficking, and you will at least get acknowledgement that there's a problem.
Yeah.
The issue that hasn't changed, I think, from 2003 to now is that we have not acquired enough of the right language to be able to break the silence in a way that is effective. And that's really what we're trying to do in our ministry, and especially with what we're going to talk about here in a minute about the leadership summit that we're going to do, is we want to be able to try to put the right tools and language into the local church's hands so that they feel a little more confident and equipped to be able to at least speak about this in a way that is intelligent and effective towards helping people come out of the dark and into the light of change.
The Barna report in 2016, the porn phenomenon, revealed that the majority of senior pastors and other support pastors, youth pastors, believe that pornography is a problem in society and pornography is a problem in their church. That's the good news. The bad news was that it revealed only 7% of churches have ever had any type of program to help those struggling with those type of sexual sins, and those who used to have a program that no longer do say that they canceled it because of lack of interest. So on one scale, like you said, we are coming a long way in saying, yes, this is a societal problem, it is our local church problem, but yet we still need to help support that 7% and get that up higher to meet that. I do want to get along to the conference that's coming up. It's called the Sexual Integrity Leadership Summit. It's April 19th through 21st in San Antonio, Texas. and it's also sponsored by Covenant Eyes. And talk about, who would the ideal person be? This isn't for everyone, obviously, and there's a hard cap. We can only have 200 people going to this. Who is the ideal person that you would like to see there and the content that's going to be shared there?
Yeah, there's There's two major categories that I think are the best fit for this particular summit. The first is those who are in some kind of purity ministry leadership. Maybe they run a support group. Maybe they are a counselor, that this is their specialty. Maybe they're part of a nonprofit organization, and this is what they do. So there's that purity minister leader person. The other is a local pastor or a local church leader. Because what we're effectively seeking to do at this particular summit is bring these experts together who have experience in dealing with the issues of sexual brokenness across the board. It could be pornography, could be abuse issues, could be affairs, trafficking, all those kinds of issues that are under this whole umbrella of just sexual brokenness. And what we're seeking to do is then formulate strategies that are effective, that can be handed to the local church anywhere in the country to more effectively reach those in their congregation and their community who are struggling with various issues of sexual brokenness. In other words, what we're trying to do is help local churches initiate effective conversations, so that we don't have any expectation that local church leaders or a senior pastor at a church is to become an expert themselves in the issue of sexual addiction or recovery or any of those kinds of things. But we do have an expectation that because we believe that if we are going to be biblical Christians, those who actually then do church on a local level from a biblical perspective, we must address the issue of sexuality, because God is very plainly willing to address it in Scripture. So what we want to do is try to give the tools and the confidence and maybe some strategies to the local church that can help them move from what typically has just been a referral-only model to actually an integrated model that says maybe we can take more steps with these individuals and couples and families who are hurting before we just sort of pass them off to a counselor. That being said, we do think that there's a fair number of those who do come to maybe their pastor or somebody in their church seeking help that do need that professional help that's outside. But we don't want that to just be the initial knee-jerk reaction that a church has that says as soon as somebody says pornography, as soon as somebody says, sexual brokenness, we just like, boom, send them out the door to a professional. We would rather be able to say, hey, let's take a couple more steps together in this process. Maybe some of those outside resources are necessary, but could we have more of an integrated model that says, this is your church home, we're your family, this is the place where healing and growth and restoration and transformation can happen. And does that make sense? So it's more of we want to try to come alongside churches, and this leadership summit is a way that we can start to pinpoint real actionable strategies for the local church.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's very respectful of churches too, saying that we don't the things that they offer in that family and the community is the same regardless of the issue. Even though we may use resources outside of those walls, we don't want to make it seem like, okay, we're silent on this issue, go find your help over there, somewhere outside of this community. So I think that's really neat how you incorporate and respect that type of feelings where people would feel comfortable in their own church with their own pastoral staff, with those counselors there, and come alongside of them when they need additional help, and not initially just say, oh, you said pornography, you said something else, therefore you know where to go, turn right around and go somewhere else. I think that makes a lot of sense.
And that's one of the reasons why we want to invite pastors and church leaders to be part of this summit. While we will certainly have those who are experts in the field of sexual brokenness, sexual addiction recovery, abuse, all those types of things, we will have experts there. We also want the local pastors to be there as well, because it's for them and the local church that we're creating these solutions. So what better place to have their voice heard to be able to say, hey, here's what we're really facing. This is what's going on. These are the challenges we have. The good news is we've also, one of our partner ministries, the Brushfires Foundation, has actually spearheaded another Barna study that will be released at the summit that was specifically targeting 400 pastors on this specific issue of sexual brokenness issues in the church. So there's going to need to be really fresh research for those pastors to be able to look and say, here's what we're dealing with. That will also help to guide some of the strategies that we develop for these churches.
What's the best way for someone to get a hold of Be Broken, or if someone's really interested in this conference coming up in April? What are the best ways for them to reach out and contact you?
Yeah, if you want to actually go to the page that deals with the Leadership Summit, they can go to purecommunity.org, and then it's /leadership-summit. I know that's a little bit. It's purecommunity.org/leadership-summit.
Okay, we'll put that in the comment section too. We'll have that in the comment section here so that people don't have to remember that. Thank you.
Yeah, and that has information about kind of what this summit is about, who the host speakers are going to be, because this is really actually going to be driven by a lot of small group discussion, table discussions, because we want to actually generate the feedback from the participants. It's not your typical conference where you sit and soak and there's not a whole lot of interactivity. This is a very interactive conference. So everybody that's there, I've been telling everybody that's registering, it's like, we're putting you to work. If you come to this, we expect your input. We need your voice.
And there's only 200 seats available. Again, it's April 19th through 21st in San Antonio, Texas. The Sexual Integrity Leadership Summit. There's a hard cap of 200 people. They cannot get any more than that. So if you're interested, I'd recommend going to that website as soon as you can and signing up for it. How much is the cost, Jonathan?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because we have one more week left on the early bird discount. So at the end of this month, January 31st, will be the end of the early bird discount, which is $99. So you can register for this for $99. After January 31st, it's $145 to register for this. So I recommend people to just respond quickly, respond this week, and they can get in.
I want to get in early on that one. Jonathan, thank you so much. I think you articulated very well the vision of Be Broken. I was going to ask about, from 2018 and on, what direction is Be Broken going into? And I think you answered that very well, going to more of a leadership training type of organization where you're training pastors, training other counselors to continue this mission. I'm encouraged by what I hear, not only from your organization, but other organizations, about taking very seriously these topics, these issues, and how more people are willing to talk about it now than they have been in years past.
Yeah. And one of the things we are specifically working on moving forward is actually building out a robust online training platform. So as we develop some of these strategies and tools, we have a place then that's central for professional and lay leaders to be trained on how to take these resources to the various audiences. We have 4 primary categories of audience. There's men, women, marriage, and family that we serve regarding the sexual brokenness issues. So we are developing an online training platform that will have resources for each of those audiences that the content is from professionals who know how to deliver this, but we want to be able to then allow any kind of lay leader to be able to then know how to facilitate how do you now take that information and distribute it into the local church. And so we'll actually have our first course ready to go by the summit. That's kind of an overview of biblical sexuality. That's like a 6-part course. That would be a very turnkey thing for a local church to be able to say, how can we begin a conversation with our people about just what does the Bible say about sexuality and what's its purpose?
What you're doing is so needed, Jonathan. I want to thank you so much for your time today, and we'll have all those details of the summit, as well as other resources for Be Broken Ministries in our comment section. Jonathan, thank you so much for your time today.